Okay, well, we have a quorum, right?
Looks like it.
Yeah, I think we've got a quorum. Okay, we will call the July 26th, 109 board meeting to order at 5:34. Welcome, everyone. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the June 28th, 2023 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, does anyone have any changes, corrections, or additions to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minute meetings for June.
I'll
Moved,
second the motion.
moved by Susan, seconded by Deborah.
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All right, Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mary Rose,
Here.
Carl,
Here.
Deborah,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Bob Lee,
Yes.
and Bob Schindler.
Yes.
I think
Okay, the
Deether's-
minutes for, I'm sorry, is Deether here?
I think she's the only one not on.
Okay, all right. Minutes for the June 28th meeting have been approved. Next item is the budget report. Are you prepared to give that, Karen, or should we put that off till the next meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not prepared.
Okay. I assume everybody had a chance to look at the documents that were mailed out or sent out by email, but it probably doesn't do any good to go over them. If you have specific questions and Karen's not prepared to answer them, we can put the July budget report off and cover it in the August meeting. If there's no objections to that.
No.
Next item on the agenda is correspondence to the board, and I don't see that we have anything come in at the last minute, Karen.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Then the next
Well-
item is action items and approval of the MOA between
What
Metro
happened? I
and
lost
District. And do I understand that we
Audio.
don't have that available?
I don't think so. Pete said
It
something.
was in our packet from last month. I mean, do we need to get?
Yeah, but Pete had sent out a note earlier to me that was not available, which I'm assuming he didn't go into any details, and I guess I don't know. But I guess that means maybe we don't have a copy back from Metro yet. I was maybe making an assumption.
I think that's what he said earlier to me.
So we will remove or not address that item tonight. That'll be just passed over. New business. Karen, you have anything on the draft RFP?
Yes, this one I do. Sorry, I've got a lot of windows open. I will go ahead and share my screen, I guess. Yeah. All right, so I'm hoping we can do this, but at the contract subcommittee has been working on drafting a RFP to have a capture rate study done. And at our advisory committee last week, we looked it over, and the committee wanted to, or there were a few changes to be made, but they voted for it to be brought to you guys this week, today, just to keep, we're trying to keep things moving along. And so this is our draft. Was it sent to you all? I think it was sent to
Yeah.
you all.
It
Yeah,
was, yes.
It was, and I noticed there had been really just only in the second paragraph there were we had some editing we did, and there were some weird wording and typos. So I did fix that on the one that I have up here on the screen, but otherwise it's what you received. And I guess if there's, I don't know, if I didn't look at the participants, if anyone on here has been a part of our, or is from the advisory committee or on the contract subcommittee and has
think
any
I saw
other
Sandra
things to
on here.
share. Who?
Sandra Leonard.
Oh, yes, yes. She's been involved in this. But if you've read it through or have any questions or thoughts about it or want us to say more, let me know. But the idea is that, you know, of course, when we do an RFP through Metro, it does get put into a, another, you know, what do they call it? Like a boilerplate or something where it has to look a certain way. But this would be the main content of it as far as what we are asking. So ideally, we would like to have you all either approve or disapprove this if we need to go back to our subcommittee with it, but that would be the goal.
Are you all looking to get it approved tonight, or
That was the idea, because
Okay.
we really do want to move it along, but if there's lots of questions or discomfort about it or needs, you know, obviously we can wait.
Bob, would you like to have a motion to get this on the floor so we can start discussing it, or do you want to wait?
yeah, that would probably be the best way to do it. Just get it on the floor.
Motion
and then-
that the 109 board approve this content for the request for proposals for this contract.
Do we have a second?
That's Hart seconds.
Not sure I know who seconded.
Susan Hart seconds.
Susan. Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other additional discussion?
Yeah, Bob, this is Bob Lee.
Yeah.
I would like to thank Karen for the additional verbiage that she put into the second paragraph. I think she did a very good job, and I think it also shows the issue in regards to what specifics that our market has in regards to 3 or 4 different types of services that are required, and that should be considered when the RFP goes out and when someone bids on it. So I think she did a fine job there. I guess my question is that with the additional language, the change in language, should it go back to the contract subcommittee?
Did the change that I'm assuming it's the change that was in yellow in the documents that came out to the board, correct?
It
I
wasn't,
believe,
it wasn't in mine, but I don't know.
Mine didn't have anything in yellow.
Actually, can I answer a couple of questions? This is Sandra Leonard.
Yes, go ahead, please.
First of all, we have been, the contract subcommittee has been working on this for quite a long time, and the advisory committee has been working on it. We ended up, this is very much a composite document from a multiple viewpoint situation. And Bob just brought up something that I actually talked about at our meeting, and Karen did do a very good job of writing it in there. One of the areas of concern I had was the fact that our marketplace in many ways is unique because of having a merged metro. And yet nowhere in there did it talk to the potential bidders of what those differences might be. Because in terms of the output that we expect, the complexity of our area is very important. The other areas that were changed are basically not significant because of all of the work that predated it. This document has been worked on for months and has changed in quite a few ways, I think for the better. So there are a number of us here, and I'm sure that we could answer any other questions that you've got.
Well, let me ask you this, Sandra. Are you would the well? I ask you and Bob also, since Bob raised the question. Do you think, as a member of this committee, do you think this needs to go back to the advisory committee with this paragraph added?
It has already been approved. The advisory committee discussed the contents of the paragraph and all agreed on it. And the motion that we passed was that we would pass this if that paragraph was put in there. And if the document was sent to all of us the following day so that we could look at the paragraph and see if it met the requirements of what we had voted on. So sending it back to the advisory committee right now for that particular item would not result in anything different. We've already voted on it.
Okay. For those who don't know what we're talking about, and I'm basing this on the fact that my copy had yellow highlight starting on the 5th line of the 2nd paragraph. It says Jefferson County includes 3 distinct service areas: an urban area that is serviced by city employees, 82 home rule cities, plus an unknown number of homeowners associations, many of which have contracted waste services, and unincorporated areas that are serviced through subscription service that probably should be is collected by up to 6 different licensed, anyway, 6 different licensed waste collectors. The complexity of the service areas and the various demographics within them should be factored into the studies. So just for information, because I noticed Karen's copy up here does not highlight that. So that would be the, it's not really a paragraph, but that would be the additional section that's being added just for everybody's information.
Yeah, and like Sandra said, we discussed adding basically that paragraph. It just didn't get done physically until after, and I sent it out to the group the next day. And I think Pete just managed to grab a different file when he sent it to you all. So, but yeah, there was just a few typos, really.
Well, the copy that I got from Pete has this exact wording in it, like Bob just read. And I would just say that it's based on what Sandra told us from the advisory committee, that it still seems to me that the motion is good and we should consider voting on it, unless Bob has some more information that he wants to share with us before we vote.
I do not. I just wanted to know what the procedures were.
Okay.
And I would agree with what Sandra said. That I think that is an important addition, because we do have a rather distinct, different way of doing business here in the county. So I think, and then I would assume, Karen, for the record, when the bids are reviewed, I would assume that you all will make that a specific question to vendors to make sure that they read it and understand it,
Yes.
in any response that they're making.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or comments or suggestions to this RFP?
Bob, not specifically to this RFP, but I think that the language is very good. It's probably the only language that I've seen that really incorporates what the current market, how I describe it. And I would think that any RFP or any bid that we would put out, like for the 5-year plan or whatever, would definitely include this language, if not more, so that everyone understands how things work in the Jefferson County market.
Yeah,
Right.
good point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve this RFP. And then approval of the RFP will be the board's direction to staff and the advisory committee to go ahead and continue with the process of getting this out for bid. Karen, can you call a roll?
Bob Lee,
Yes.
Mary Rose,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and Bob Schindler.
Yes. Okay, that item has been approved. Thank you all very much. And I apologize, I'm trying to get the agenda back up on my other screen here.
We have Metro Council resolution, single-use bags.
Yeah, I apologize. It's on the screen, but it's so small I can't read it. Can you go ahead with that item?
I don't have anything on that. I'm not sure if anyone is joining us today to share about that, or if Pete, I know he sent you all something, so if you all have, just gonna see if I can pull it up.
Bob, do we know if we're supposed to act on this, or is this just informational? I mean, we got a resolution and an ordinance. And
I don't think it's any, I didn't interpret it unless Pete's available there to say something. I didn't interpret it that this was on here as an action item tonight. This was an informational item.
This is Natalie Johnson with the County Attorney's Office. I do have a copy of the resolution if you all want me to share my screen, or I can talk to you all about it. It's basically a resolution asking Metro to work on education about single-use plastics and to work with local restaurants on those issues. And I will share my screen.
It was
Natalie.
actually on my, I received it. I'm not sure if anyone.
yeah, we
Okay.
received it in our packet, so.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Natalie, I think the question is, and I know that there were amendments made to the original resolution, but I think the question was really, did the 109 board have a position, and particularly on the original ordinance, as the existing resolution has been watered down. And last I heard, Councilmember Rui was working with public health, I think, to come up with some additional solutions. And so, the question was, did members of this board really have any interest in working on that?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've talked to individuals with the Restaurant Association and others, and I thought that this was going to go back to committee in order to work on the resolution as well as the ordinance. I think it's way too premature in order to even talk about the ordinance because it's going to change substantially. And I would prefer to hear from the council and the committee itself in regards to how they want to proceed. I don't think they've chosen which path that they do want to proceed yet.
When you say committee, you're referring to the Aldermanic Committee?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Well, I did not see that this was going to be an action item tonight. This is the first time that this has really come before this board. I think the board would have a lot of input into this, as board and staff both, but it's not something that we can, after just receiving it as a packet in the mail, that I think we're prepared to discuss or either endorse or not endorse. What I guess what we need to do is make sure, if staff could make sure that board members are kept up to date with this as it progresses through the committee process with Metro Council. Because at some point in time, the board would need to weigh in on this. It's something that would fall definitely under our purview of education and trying to encourage waste reduction and recycling within the community. So I think what Bob said is appropriate. We need to stay on top of it, but there's no action to take tonight. Natalie, do you have anything to add as far as this process goes?
As of right now, I don't think I do. I believe it's in committee right now, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but that's really all the information I have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I mean, this is something that obviously advances in a very good way our primary goal. And so I think that we should take a great deal of interest in it. I thought what I heard from what Nicole just asked is this board going to support this because it is helping our mission so much? And there was other language where there were going to be restrictions on restaurants and fines and so on. So I think the question is, do we want it stronger language, or do we want it weaker language, or do we like this compromise language? I don't think that any of us are prepared to answer those questions tonight, because none of us know what it's like to be like in the field and handing out forks at restaurants, but we can at least think about it and try to get some kind of a way to encourage the people who are bringing this before the Metro Council and getting the health department and other departments in Metro Louisville to help us with our mission. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Rose. I can't imagine, just from my own personal viewpoint, I can't imagine this board not supporting the general intent of an ordinance like this. It does put things in a little bit of a tricky situation, though, because as it moves through the Metro Council process, if the board wants to have serious input on it, I can't take it upon myself to speak for the board and appear in front of a Metro Council committee and make comments without consulting the other board members. But we also, correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but we also have to be careful about how board members would discuss this among themselves, because it can't be a meeting or too many board members getting together to discuss this. So I guess, Karen, just have the board try to keep us up to date as much as possible on this. And if we need to convene a special meeting for the board to discuss it in order to make comments to the advisory committee, we can probably squeeze that in. Natalie or Nicole, would that seem to fit pretty much in the way this will develop?
Yes, I just thought it was something that should be on the radar of the 109 board. Should you guys choose to weigh in, it certainly seemed to be relevant to your work and would benefit from, input and attention. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there any other comments from board members on this issue? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to old business, the litter campaign report.
Yes, so we have invited Jane Pfeiffer from Field Trip to join us today. I think that nobody else. Oh, Annie's on here too. And they are, that we just asked them to give the summary. We shared with you all already, I think, that 30-day report that they gave us. But you know, this is it's an expensive project, but it's also you know, a really important to the community. And I believe as long as we're able to continue campaigns like this, that this is just only the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg of what we can do if we continue with some of some messaging out there. And the capabilities that they have is much different than the capabilities that I have just as our educator. So so Jane and Annie,
I may have to hop back out and back in.
Yeah, so Annie's here. Our conference camera, for whatever reason, kind of is ignoring her, but she's working on that and will join me soon. So I'm Jane Pfeiffer, founder and president of Field Trip. It's been a pleasure to work on this campaign. And so what we have today is a high-level overview of what our objectives were, how we got to the creative concept, how it's been distributed, and what that reach has been. And as a result of that, hopefully, you know, everyone understands what's been invested, how it's been invested, and then, you know, aligned on, you know, how we can be champions to reduce litter and other related issues. Before we get into that, are there any specific questions or expectations that you have so we can make sure that we speak to those?
Anyone? Well, hearing nothing, go ahead.
All right. So our process begins with discovery. Just like our name indicates, we believe that by going out into the real world and looking at the organization and the problem from a fresh perspective, that's how we listen and learn and make sure that we're developing a solution that addresses the right people and can speak to the people that we need to influence. And so to do that, we audited creative and website that had been used, did a number of stakeholder interviews, did ride-alongs with the team, and then created strategic implications. So a key insight, looking at the environmental mindset, behavioral change, and audiences. And then that led into a recommendation.
So these are the strategic insights that were created in these three areas, and really what we looked to for the key insight was this idea of being good to your neighborhood and putting every piece in its place. You'll see a portion of that was actually used in the campaign messaging, but really what this key insight was an insight that would guide both the creative and the messaging and the strategy of what we developed for this campaign. So I'll go into a little bit of an overview of the media that was used throughout the campaign. We targeted the Louisville metro area with a heavier focus on some specific zip codes or neighborhoods that were more heavily impacted by just heavy litter in those areas. And then we targeted kind of a general audience from 18 to 65. And then we also had a secondary emphasis on those under the age of 40, as that is the age group that is more likely to litter. So with the tactics that we selected, our goal was to move people who saw the message through the media funnel here. So starting with engaging a broad audience just at the awareness level, and we utilized outdoor digital boards as well as a lot of bus shelters throughout the city to engage with a broad audience. From there, we moved into the interest phase where we looked towards streaming audio ads as well as digital display ads. And you'll see examples of all of these tactics and what the actual creative looked like here in just a little bit. And then moving through to the consideration phase where we are trying to move people through the funnel, we looked towards programmatic and native display and then social media ads. And as we continued on towards the intent phase where people have likely started to see this messaging and maybe recognizing the creative at this point, we continued retargeting them with programmatic display and social media.
Yeah, and this funnel, just to elaborate, represents the kind of the decision-making process. So once someone becomes aware that litter is a bad thing, that's already, we've got to move them from being aware that there is litter to having an opinion on it, to then deciding that maybe they're part of the problem or part of the solution or both, and then making action. So that's why you see, you know, media at each level of this, so that we're bringing people down through the funnel, because that's what leads to action.
And as they've started seeing this messaging more and more and have had probably multiple touch points with the campaign at this point, this is where they're in the evaluation stage. So kind of making decisions on whether or not they think that the messaging and what's being shown to them is important. So here we really looked towards a custom landing page to help kind of drive that message home, and hopefully moving people all the way through conversion. So they're thinking about their actions on a daily basis and doing what they can to reduce litter and not litter themselves, and then hopefully through to the advocate phase, where maybe they're sharing pieces of the campaign on social media, or they're reaching out via the contact form on the landing page to take further action and engage further. Okay, so to show you and kind of give you a little bit of background on the creative direction, what we used for this campaign was a simple layout with a really bold font, and used overhead shots of trash that were reminiscent of spilled litter on a sidewalk or road. Something fun that you'll notice is it is actual trash that we used. We literally went around the area near our office to collect trash, so it is very authentic litter that was utilized in the campaign. We originally started by just taking trash from our trash can in the office, but then we decided that it looked too clean and not authentic enough. So you'll see actual litter in the creative. But really we paired a simple call to action with a bold kind of font and shots of the litter kind of almost crowding out the messaging, just to illustrate how serious of a problem this can be, but also be eye-catching and engaging at the same time. So here are some examples of how this came together. These are actually posters that we created, and you can see the actual images of the trash and kind of the crowded font. On some of the posters, we actually added in a QR code that scanned directly to our landing page. And as I mentioned, we also created a landing page for this campaign that was kind of built into the existing No Waste Louisville site. We created this landing page so that if someone were to engage with our ad and want to go to that URL, they would get more information, but in a cohesive way that wasn't jarring, made them feel like it made sense, kind of the journey from seeing the ad to getting on the landing page that was in line with the creative. So on our landing page, this top section that it adds up was actually a like mobile section where the trash crowded the letters when you first logged onto the site, so it was really dynamic and eye-catching. We moved on to this really bold statistic, 300,000 pounds of litter collected last year in Louisville, and that's enough to fill the seats of the Young Center. So tying in kind of a local way to make people understand kind of the scope of the issue that we're trying to create awareness around. We also used kind of dual messaging, 2 ways to make a difference: don't add to the litter, and when you see it, pick it up. We also did some A/B testing throughout the campaign to see if either of those messages resonated more with people, or if they were kind of equally split. So, as well as our frequently asked questions. So wanted to call out just some common misconceptions that we learned throughout our research in regards to litter, such as people maybe thinking that litter is only from people intentionally throwing it on the ground, but really trying to educate people and make them understand that there are lots of different ways that litter can become a problem. And then we also added a contact form towards the bottom, where if people had more specific questions or had ideas of how they could help, we wanted to create a place where they could submit for more information and hopefully get in touch. And then we've compiled the campaign results per tactic. So the first one is programmatic display, and what that is essentially banner ads or different type of ads that you see when you are browsing the web, or you'll typically see it on your phone or on your web browser. So these are ads that are kind of built into a web page, and you'll see them organically. And what impressions are is the total number of eyeballs that saw the campaign. So you'll see at the top for this tactic specifically, programmatic display, it was 1.3 million impressions. So to give you a little bit of context, that is the same as the number of vehicles produced in Kentucky annually.
And it's called impressions because if, Susan sees it 4 times, that's counted as 4 impressions. So that's why you do see such a large number, as we aim to have really large reach, but also we know that individual needs to see something multiple times in order to remember it.
So next, streaming audio, we had both a 30-second ad as well as a 15-second ad. We had 500,000 completions, meaning 500,000 times both of those ads were listened all the way through, which is always really exciting to see. And then this was also accompanied by a banner ad that was served at the same time as the streaming audio. So a really great number of impressions on the banner ad as well, which is approximately the number of barrels that the Jim Beam Distillery fills in 1 year. Fun fact for you. And then we had social media advertising as well, so Facebook and Instagram, really high number of impressions on this tactic as well, 1.8 million, which is enough to fill all of the seats in Churchill Downs 10 times. In addition, we had some outdoor advertising. Bus shelters were a really big part of this campaign. We also added in the different neighborhood names on a lot of the bus shelters. So if there was a bus shelter in Shawnee, it called that out specifically. It would say it adds up Shawnee, just to kind of tie in that local element and make people understand that this was a local effort and almost give it a little bit of a grassroots feel. So a really great number of impressions with our bus shelters, which is more than double the population of the state of Kentucky as a whole. And then finally, with our digital outdoor boards, we had a rotating cast of digital outdoor boards over the course of the campaign, and it's estimated that it was about 2 million impressions. So really great reach with our outdoor boards as well. This is a really fun fact that I had no idea until I was trying to find little things that I could compare this to, but Airheads candy are produced in Kentucky, and our digital outdoor impressions, about 2 million, is the same number of Airheads produced each day in Kentucky. Really pulling out all the trivia here for you. And then finally, just to kind of wrap up the total number of impressions here, really high number, which is equivalent to the population of Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee combined. So that is a wrap up of all of just kind of information about the campaign. We would love if there's any questions you all have or any further information we can provide. The floor is open.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Any questions of board members, comments from board members? I can understand how you this is just curiosity on my part. I can understand how you get impressions off of social media, but how do you judge impressions off something, say like a bus shelter?
Yeah, so there's a number called a daily effective count. And so for things like bus shelters and billboards, the providing company, the media vendor, will do a traffic survey. So that can be like, you might have noticed sometimes you drive over like a cable in the middle of the road and it just counts cars. And so that's how they get to that daily impression count based on the traffic and that drives by it.
Any other questions from board members? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say I thought it looked great, especially the how we personalize for the communities. We know that Louisville is they take pride in their communities, so I think a really awesome idea is to kind of personalize different communities as well. So no, I thought everything was great.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Carl.
you.
And some of those communities reached out to us when they saw it and asked for posters. Annie's team was able to make other ones that were requested with maybe different neighborhood names that didn't make it onto a bus shelter. And you know, I don't know that it went everywhere, but you know, some businesses and libraries and places. Yeah, so.
Cool.
So Karen,
I like that part too, the naming. I thought that was a good idea.
so Karen, where do we, as the education process, go from here?
I'm sorry. Somebody rings the doorbell and he goes crazy. So sorry, Bob. The question, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, as far as our educational outreach plan, where do we go from here?
So this is not an ask at this meeting, but it is, we wanted Field Trip to be here to be able to share this campaign so that you kind of understood, I guess, how it works. I know Carl has a lot of experience with this, but maybe some other board members don't. And so we just kind of wanted you all to be aware of. I'm sorry, no one else is in my house to help me. So we would like to do another campaign. So that's not an ask tonight officially, but it will require more money. So we hope that that you all, you know, are pleased with the litter campaign. I don't, the hard part is it's not like we have super tangible results. You know, it's not like all of a sudden there's 0 litter in Louisville. Obviously that's not how easy it is, but I wanted you all to establish that relationship with Field Trip and you know, have that connection. So hopefully if we're able to work with them, though we won't have to do as much of the survey part because we've already done a lot of that. But in order to move forward with another campaign, we will need you all. So we were discussing possibly having one centered on recycling next. So there's been some preliminary discussions, and some of that was during the survey phase when we first began. We felt with the timing that litter was our first idea to go with, but anyway, I guess it's more of kind of just putting it out there and hoping that you all as board members, you know, I guess like what we're doing and would like to see more of it.
Can I add in real quickly? Also, maybe for consideration, Karen and Field Trip, I think there's going to be some opportunities to co-op what we're doing with other entities who will be interested in coming alongside us for several different reasons. One in particular, I recently had a conversation, actually it was last week, with TARC. And we had shared with them about what they're doing. Obviously, they were knowledgeable to some degree, and there's the interest there to working with us as well with some things that they want to do, co-opting monies into actually helping the message to get out there further. So it has been brought to them about cleanliness and their bus routes and things like that. And I shared to them a little bit about what we were doing. And so they're interested in having a conversation to see if there's an opportunity to co-op on some of the things we're doing to get the message out there further, to utilize their resources a little bit more and their media spend as well. So there, and I think not only them, there's probably some other entities out there that would probably be interested in joining in the campaign possibly and utilizing some of their marketing and dollars and some of their resources to help us kind of continue to push the message out there.
Yeah, Carl, we have a couple ideas too on partners. And actually I have a meeting with TARC in just a couple weeks. So perhaps that's something we can talk about.
For sure, they were really interested. I had told them that I would bring it up at our next meeting and see who I needed to get involved in that conversation. But there was definitely some interest there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Carl, that's good news to hear that, because considering what the problem is in this community with littering and with illegal dumping, sometimes you feel like the voice crying in the wilderness, and it's also, you know, I think I for one realize that this is not going to be a one hit and we sit back and say, oh wow, look, it cured the littering, because it's something we're going to have to keep pounding and pounding and pounding away, because it took years for people to develop the bad habits. So it isn't going to happen overnight.
But there's a lot of companies who now it's to their best interest that the more we do on promoting the cleanliness and the beauty of our cities in their best interest. Another one is I had a conversation just a little bit farther back, but along the same lines with Churchill Downs. And so their interest now with what they're doing, especially with building the new facilities in downtown and several different facilities they have, and with everything that's going on with gaming around the state and the city, their interest is to definitely make sure that people feel it's more inviting by it being cleaner. And so I think that, I just think that being in other meetings that I think there's going to be interest from several people who would probably have a real interest of seeing how they could maybe take part or utilize their resources to help us in our messaging.
Yeah, that's a good point, Carl. Being a solid waste background, I tend to look at this from a narrow focus, and that is you get upset with how much money you're spending cleaning up after people, but it really does affect other parts of the community. With tourism and that whole 9 yards, you don't tend to think of if you're just strictly in the solid waste business.
Yeah, I had a family relative who worked for tourism, and as potential clients would come in for conferences and things, there were specific streets and areas that they would drive to, try and give the best image, because they just knew where it would be cleaner and look the best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Annie and Jane, thank you all very much. Thanks you, Karen. Thanks to everybody involved with this, staff at Field Trip, the advisory committee people.
Well, it's been an honor to make our beloved home a little brighter. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you all. Any additional questions or comments from the audience or board members?
Bob, I have another comment. As I was thinking about Field Trip and how we've spent a lot of money on this litter thing, I couldn't help but thinking back to the resolution and the ordinance from the Metro Council. And I just think that it would be a terrible opportunity for us to miss if we did not do something to encourage that to go through. I don't think we should endorse any specific language of how it should happen, but I think that we should find a way for this board to highly encourage the Metro Council to work with restaurants to decrease the amount of solid waste coming from them. And that's so much a part of our mission, and it's going to help us so much. And if we get other people like the health department, Carl's doing these connections with tourism and all of that, which is important. But if we can do some connections with the health department, all those connections are so important. And I just think that we need to, by next month, find a way for this board to back that resolution, or at least the part of it that we can. So, and that's just an opinion, but I think it's important.
I would agree. I think you make a good point, Mary Rose. You really do.
Karen, that's something we can talk about, and I've got a couple ideas.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. If there are no other questions or comments on that, we'll move on to the advisory committee report.
So part of our report is, of course, that capture rate study RFP. So thank you. That was a little bit separate on the agenda, and we appreciate that. I know that subcommittee will be thrilled that that we can move on to, although, you know, we still have to work on it as staff, but as that subcommittee can actually move on to another topic, which I believe the idea is working toward the construction and demolition issue. As far, I don't have the 5-year plan right in front of me to read the language, but the one that involves construction and demolition material. And the education part of the subcommittee over education, we've been doing a lot of kind of information gathering and brainstorming about consistent messaging and looking at all the materials that the haulers have and what information they receive, if they have their services, and how that compares or is different than others, or the city's materials, and trying to find ways to make sure that we don't confuse people, because as we already discussed, the complex nature of our county's collection system, that can be a result, is just confusion about materials, what's accepted, and where it goes, what happens to it, things like that. So so we've just been doing a lot of discussions and information gathering right now. And the great thing to me is the correlation between that capture rate study. If we can get that going, that the results of that, we don't know what they will be. We understand. Sorry, we understand the what happens with capture rate studies, but we have no idea what our results will be here in Louisville. So so in other words, that study will actually help push the education in ways that we aren't so sure about as of right now. So so I'm really excited about that. And that's pretty much the report, unless Sandra or Kim or anyone else has anything else to say about our meetings, or if there's any questions.
I don't have anything to add, Karen.
Karen, I kind of hate to, I feel like we always dump on the advisory committee, but as this ordinance progresses, can you also make sure that that at least the educational people on the advisory committee, you know, I apologize for constantly dumping on the advisory committee, but Sandra, I think this could overlap, or should overlap, into some concerns of the advisory committee. So just make sure that at least those members are kind of aware of what's going on. And if they want to make comments, they can get comments either into you, us, or if we end up as a board trying to do something on it, we can gather what information that we need to know, or opinions that we need to know.
Yes, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, thank you. I always like that. I always feel like we don't give enough thanks to the advisory committee, because you guys do the yeoman's part of the work that we end up dealing with in here as a board.
Actually, I think one of the things that would help is when you get some of your reports, it would help if they came to us also. Some of the supplementary materials that you're given for your board meetings are things that do come back to us, and it would help if we could see what those are.
Yeah, I would personally wouldn't have any problem with that at all, because it's all public record.
Good
So.
idea.
Okay, thank you all. Staff report. Don't have anything on the agenda. Do you have anything? Before we go into that, I probably should comment you on how quick you are with your mute button.
He's good.
Sorry, I didn't know the commotion that would be happening in this little hour we have here. Thank you for your patience.
Is there a staff report? I'm sorry.
I don't think I have anything extra to say. Nope.
The announcements were in the agenda sent out, but the next board meeting, August 23rd. The Education Subcommittee and Contract Subcommittee have their meetings. Then the General Advisory Committee meeting. Is there any other announcements need to be made? Are there any other comments or questions from either board members or audience members about anything that went on here today? All right, I guess if nobody has anything else, thank you all very much for attending and appreciate all the input and consideration. And I guess we'll entertain a meeting to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Moved, anybody? Moved and seconded. So we are adjourned at 6:29 p.m. Thank you all very much. Karen,
Nice.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
staff, board members, and
Thanks,
public.
Karen,
You
for
all
all
very
the last minute
Wonderful.